So today we are very fortunate to have with us Pujapad Yasodanandana Prabhu. He is from London, and he's a very accomplished man in all fields, I would say, be it material life or be it spiritual. He's achiever in everywhere. He was born in 1968 in London, and at the age of 26, he owned a company with 120 employees. So you can imagine what most of the people in the world keep dreaming about whole of their life. He has achieved it at the age of young age of 26. And then he met our Pujapad Bhudar Prabhu, who was on our program a few days back, and he introduced him to bhajan and spiritual life and devotion. And with him, he traveled to India within a few months, and there he met our Srila Gurudev. And once he met our Srila Gurudev, he did not take much time to take Diksha and initiation. Within a few months, he took Diksha, and he was on his way to serve him immediately. Like we have seen a lot of people, they take years to take Diksha and they are not able to decide. But Prabhuji was very quick in doing all these things, and he found what he was looking for. And then immediately, few months later, he invited Gurudev to London, and he hosted him many times there. And he worked very closely with our Srila Gurudev in doing so many sevas. He has helped in publishing of many books, especially Bhagavad Gita and many more. He has hosted Gurudeva and his party many times in the United Kingdom. And he was the main force behind our Navdeep temple. He was the main contributor to help our Srila Gurudev. In fact, Srila Gurudev named the hall there as Yasodanandana Hall, the one where we sit, the main hall in front of Thakurji. So he was, and also he helped in our building up of Govardhan temple. So he worked very closely with Gurudeva, and he was a very close disciple of our Srila Gurudev. And not only this, he has also made several firms, business firms, and he's a well-educated, well-read person. He studied at Cambridge University and London Business School. And as per him, he says there are three things are important to Yasodanandana Prabhu in relation to Krishna consciousness. Make it practical, depend on your guru, and have time to laugh and cry every day. So we will hear more about these three things from his directly from him, what he means by all these three things. Also, we would like to know his journey to Srila Gurudev, how his and we like to hear glories of Srila Gurudev from him, and also we like to hear about his own life, how the life took him in the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev and made everything so beautiful. And not only all this, even now for the Centennial program, he's doing a very big seva. He's organizing Bhakti Zoom festivals in London, which they invite so many devotees from all over the world. And also they have many more programs of Harikatha and our celebrations of Tithis. So he's been really a force behind the Centennial program, which are going on. And we like to take inspiration from his story and how we can serve Gurudev like he has done in his own life. So I request our Yasodanandana Prabhu to open his heart out to all the devotees, and we are very eager to hear his story of association with Srila Gurudev, and we want to take a lot of inspiration from his life with Gurudev. Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji, welcome.
Dandavat Pranams, Prabhu. You've already opened my heart by inviting me so sweetly.
Thank you so much for turning up. Thanks.
Vanchakalpa Turbischa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're fine. Perfect.
Vanchakalpa Turbischa, Kripasinduevacha, Patitanam Pavanabhyo, Vaishnavabhyo Namanamaha, Om Gyan Tiramandasya Gyanjana Salakaya, Chakshomilitamina Tashmai Shri Gurve Maha, Trinada Pi Sunichana, Taro Rapi Sahishnana, Hamani Namanadena, Kirtini Sadahari, Tatenu Kampam Susamik Shamano, Ujavitma Kitam Vipakam, Hitvakakupividam Namaste, Chivitayo Mukti Sa Dayabak, Gachavigam, Manashakrodavigam, Jiva Vigam, Udaro Pashta Vigam, Etam Vigam Yo Vishahita Dira, Savamapimam Pritivim Sashishyat, Anyablasta Sunyam Gyan Kamrinivritam, Anukalenya Krishna Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. My dear, beautiful God brothers and God sisters and godmothers, godfathers, and sons and daughters, I am so honored, privileged, and fortunate to be here today to honor Srila Gurudeva. When I reflect for just 1 second on the probability of having human life, just human life, I am amazed by my fortune. Then when I add on top of that, the fact that mathematically, and I can prove this, we have been born 0.2 seconds in terms of the day of Brahma after the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who only appears once in a day of Brahma. Then this fortune is magnified even more exponentially to a most extraordinary degree. And then I'm born at a time when this wisdom of the ancient Vedas, this wisdom of Bhagavatam, this wisdom of Parampara is available in debauchee countries like the United Kingdom, is even more extraordinary. You know, we're going exponential to exponential. Human life to just straight after Mahaprabhu disappears to when Parampara has actually done their preaching, so it reaches the Western countries. And then, as I wrote in my biography, like Forrest Gump, I somehow, even without even realizing I didn't even know I was trying. I wasn't even really searching. I was more bumbling along. I'm able to meet a Gurudev, a Mahabhagavad of this standing, of a descending Mahabhagavad from the spiritual world. It's the most extraordinary set of probabilities. And then on top of that, you invite me to honor him. So it actually isn't impossible. That is almost, I think I'm at infinite possibilities, infinite probabilities that I can have such good fortune. And I often say that it is important to know that I'm not qualified. That is the first step in humility. But I think the second step in humility is sometimes more important than the first step of humility. The second step in humility is to know that it doesn't matter that I'm not qualified. Why does it not matter that I'm not qualified? It matters not that I'm not qualified because my Gurudev has singled me out, has given me the chance, and I have faith in him that he will give me, he is my qualification, he is my passport, he's my visa, he's my everything, he's the lotus feet I hold on to, so that I can make it to Goloka Vrindavan. Sometimes as devotees, we get stuck in this preamble of humility. Oh, I'm not qualified, I'm not worthy, I can't do anything. It's not true. Because if you have connection to Parampara, we can do anything. Anything is possible. Like the squirrel in Lord Ram's Leela. I'm sure you all know the beautiful story of how Lord Ram was building the bridge to Sri Lanka in order to defeat Ravana. And the monkeys, they were building this bridge with great boulders. They were muscular and big and powerful. And they were putting in place all the boulders. And there's this little squirrel, he was just putting in the little pebbles and sand in between the boulders to keep the boulders together. But one day, the squirrel got in the way of one of the monkeys. And one of these monkeys, who was very proud of his strength, looked at the squirrel and said, "What are you doing here? Why? Get out of my way." And the squirrel looked at the monkey, frightened. And the monkey said, I don't want to see you here tomorrow. The next day, the squirrel wasn't going to go anywhere. The squirrel, although he feared the monkey, he loved his saver, he loved his Ram more than he feared the monkey. So what did the squirrel do? He carried on serving. And what did the monkey do? The monkey got angry with the squirrel. And he picked up the squirrel and he flipped him up. He tossed him in the air, hundreds and hundreds of meters towards the sky. And as the squirrel was falling down through the sky, he cried out, Ram, Ram, and Ram put out his palm. And the squirrel landed in the heart of Lord Ram's palm. And Lord Ram, with his beautiful eyes, gazed at the squirrel, and the squirrel gazed up at Ram. And Ram stroked the squirrel's head, which is why he has 3 stripes on his head. And he chastised his monkeys. He said, you monkeys, you must understand. You must understand this squirrel's, his saver is as important as your saver. It's not the quantity of the saver, it's the quality of the saver. So this humility that we try to cultivate should never get in the way of our endeavor to serve. Our parampara, our Gurudev can empower us to do anything. I mean, literally anything, if we want to receive their grace and his grace, their mercy and his mercy. We must be willing to be fully empowered by Gurudev so that our sadhana, our beautiful sadhana, our sadhana where we're chanting and we're greedy for Harinam, we're greedy for some taste, that sadhana can flow like a river into our seva, so that our seva can be powerful and reach the estuaries, reach the oceans, and make things happen. Our sadhana, our seva, both must be strong and both must be, I'm going to use a word that's not often used in Krishna consciousness. I'm going to say that Gurudev is ambitious for us. This is a word I'm purposely putting that word in there because it's usually a very materialistic word. But let's be ambitious for Krishna consciousness. It is a universalist spiritual path. It is for the whole world. Everyone can either be a devotee or they can be a friend of a devotee. There should be no other category in our mind. You're either devotee or friend of devotee. There's nothing else, nothing else. And our job is to share that mercy, because we have had so much fortune to have association with a Mahabhagavad like Gurudev. To hold back and not be ambitious, both for our sadhana and our seva, that wouldn't be a sign of our humility that we don't think we're good enough. It would be a sign of our expression that we don't think our Gurudev is good enough. But he's more than good enough. He's better. He's better because he can empower us however faulty we are, however conditioned we are, however much black stuff is in our hearts, however much nonsense we do. Our Gurudev is our beating heart, and he can empower us to do anything. So when I talk about Gurudev, I will sometimes use the past tense grammatically, because as a conditioned soul, I live in the conditioned world, so I live in the past, present, and future. But I want everyone to be aware that actually when I share any stories about Srila Gurudev, I want you to receive them as much as possible like they are in the present, because my relationship with Gurudev is always in the eternal present. It is an eternal relationship. So when I said, oh, Gurudev did this or Gurudev did that, actually, this is just an illusion of the material dimension. Actually, any pastime anyone's ever had with Gurudev, it's eternal. It's eternally binding us to him. That is the job of these activities these experiences that we have with Gurudev. They bind us to him, and they bind us to him eternally. So while I will sometimes use the past tense, in my heart, there is no past tense where Gurudev is concerned. There's only present tense. So I have a lot of stories to share. I don't think I'll have time to share them all. Each one is like I don't know if you know the word. Am I speaking slow enough? Because I know not everybody is going to be English speaking here. Is it okay, Ajay?
Does anybody have any issues understanding Prabhuji? They can let us know. He can speak slowly. Otherwise, I think you're doing good, Prabhuji. I'm okay.
Because I might get excited, and if I get excited, I start speaking faster, so I'll slow myself down. And my Hindi is a bit rusty, I have to say.
But you can speak something if you want. People would love to hear something.
No, impossible. I'd love to speak Hindi, but I don't.
Okay.
So there's two ways of glorifying Gurudev. One way of glorifying Gurudev is you share your intimate moments, those emotional moments of Srila Gurudev. And the other way you do so is by sharing his teachings. And the latter is considered the more orthodox approach, although I do think both are beautiful. What I'm going to try and do today is I'm going to blend the two. I want to share my personal stories of Gurudev, some of which are quite humorous. And I want to extract from that his teachings in action. How there's actually no difference between his teachings and his actions. They're one and the same. That's why we love Srila Gurudev so much, because there's no difference between what he's speaking on the Vyasasan and how he's acting every day. This is the beauty. He's what I would call a perfectly congruent personality. There is no difference between his speech and his actions, none at all. And my frame of reference is going to be, like we all know that in Krishna consciousness, there is Prayojan, Abhideya, and Sambandha. Prayojan is the goal. Sambandha is the relationships. And Abhideya is the process that helps us to get from where we are to the goal. But I'm going to change the three words slightly, and I'm going to Gurudev them slightly. And I'm going to say the goal is the hidden treasure that he gave us. This is the goal, the hidden treasure. And I'm going to say the Abhideya is the greed he instructed us to develop. And if we didn't have greed, the greed for greed. This is very important because this gives us access to mercy and grace. This is his Abhideic alchemy, if you like. And relationship, I'm going to change to loving dealings. Yeah, so I'm sort of taking the three words that we're used to, and I'm not negating them, they're equally valuable, but I'm trying to imbue them with a sort of taking them from the tattva realm to the more, how would you say grammatically, adding an ing at the end of it. Instead of it being a noun, it's more of an active verb. Yeah, because the most important thing about Krishna consciousness. Some of us may be quite gyan based. We can be quite intelligent, knowing shastras and knowing this verse and that verse and understanding the tattva very well. And that's very, very important and should never be in any way minimized. But most importantly, Krishna consciousness is about, and Gurudev is so much about this, is living below the neck, living in your heart all the time. Your heart being alive, being in the river of bhakti, not observing the river, not just sitting on the bank painting a picture, but being in the river itself, in the river of bhakti. This is how Gurudev lived his life on this planet. So I actually have, if you can you believe it, I managed to write down 27 stories. That's why I said I'm not going to get through them all today. But I thought I'd make it a little bit in. Huh?
We'd like to hear all of them. We can extend the time a little bit. It's okay.
They're little ones, but I thought I'd make it interactive. So I've written numbers by all of them, and anyone who's online or you, Ajay, you can just name a number, and I'll pick it from the number. The story. 108. I should have done it around 108. No, it's 1 to 27. 108. There's no 108. 27. Okay, we got one. Wonderful. 27. Oh yeah. This is beautiful. So
you're making it so interesting, Prabhuji.
Huh?
You're making it so interesting and interactive.
It makes it. I had a backup plan. The backup plan, because sometimes people don't participate. So the backup plan was a bowl where I just pick one out like that. But I much prefer the interactivity. So now, yeah, this is Ramananda. Remember this? I think back in 1996. Now you have to remember, as I described in my bio, I was the Forrest Gump of Krishna consciousness. I mean, I don't know whether culturally this will make a lot of sense to your audience, but I was just a Jewish boy from London who had no idea about India, Hinduism. I mean, just no idea whatsoever. I was reasonably, not badly traveled, quite well traveled, but this was well outside of my cultural framework. And so I was there in the first Kartik of 96. So I met Gurudev in the February of 96 before he traveled to the West. The timing was super fortunate. I have no idea how that timing worked out. And so I went for that Kartik. And I just remember how on the Vyasa-san, there was the Srila Gurudev and Srila Bhaktivedanta Tripurkar Maharaj. And you know how close they were always to each other. And to be honest, I was a little afraid of Tripurkar Maharaj. He looked kind of fierce. He kind of looked the kind of person that would tell me exactly what kind of human being I am, which I really didn't want to know too much at that stage. I was quite happy in my denial, you know.
I was fearful too. Everybody was fearful from most of us.
Yeah. Except for Damodar Maharaj.
Yeah.
And I just remember, and you know, what the beautiful thing about this is that things happened in the past, and then over time they keep living in your heart and you understand them more and more. And what happened was that Gurudev would always be arguing with Tripurkar Maharaj on the Vyasa-san, but it would be like they'd be arguing quite ferociously and then laughing the next minute. It was not proper, you know, it wasn't like they weren't having a dispute that was going to break their friendship. And of course, we were all on Gurudev's side, and we were like, right, you know, we were all Radhadasyas, and we're all da. I mean, I didn't know what a Radhadasya was to save my life. Anyone had to tell me, like, what were you supporting? I'd say I have no idea, just my Gurudev. So I was just like parroting what everybody else was doing. But it was so beautiful. I mean, just a couple of things that came out of that was, firstly, this is the loving dealing side. You know, I said at the beginning, Sambandha, loving and dealings. Prayojan, the hidden treasure. And Abhideya, greed and greed for greed, or lobe for lobe. And his dealings with Tripurkar Maharaj were just so sweet. You just knew that they could really push each other around with great humor and great love and great respect, and show how united they were. And yet you kind of felt somewhere along the line there was some disagreement, but it was such a beautiful disagreement. It was like the disagreement of brother and brother, of loving brother and loving brother. And actually their differences made them love each other more. And you could feel that. You could just completely feel that. And so that gave me something that I couldn't write down as a formula, but I took it into my heart as an example, a living example of loving dealings with your fellow devotees. They were the absolute example of loving dealings with one another. That essence, that's the magical juice that Gurudev gives us. It's not just what's written down, it's somehow from heart to heart. It's those dealings which are, you can't codify. What Gurudev gives us, you can't actually codify. It's beyond code. It's taking all that tattva, but it's turning it into something so beautiful by his example. So that was really beautiful watching that. And obviously also from a more of a tattva and rasik point of view, it also embedded in my mind very early on this idea of you anyabrasya sunyam gyan kambya navritam anukaranya krishna shilanam bhakti uttama. Yes, we're serving Shri Krishna without any interruption, and we want to do so with our whole body and mind, with no interruption and no distraction whatsoever, with no desire for liberation, no desire for karma, no desire for mystic cities. But how are we serving Krishna, Shri Krishna? We're serving Krishna by serving Radha. She's our Swamini. This was such a, and actually this is also about the hidden treasure. This is the hidden treasure that he was bringing out, that he still brings out day by day by day, that makes his presence on this planet extraordinarily important and makes Krishna consciousness super tasty. So that's number 27. What are we going to have next, guys? To get my excuse me, I just got to get a pen.
Okay, 13.
13. Oh, I love this. This is great. Okay. I'm just going to cross 27 out. Number 30. See, I've got no idea now, you see. Oh, that's your lucky number, is it? Oh, okay. Yeah. This is a great one. Actually, Prabhu mentioned this earlier. So I went up to Gurudev in, I don't know what year it was, early 2000s. And I said to Gurudev, oh, I want to do this, that, and the other. And he always had this lovely, he didn't chastise me for many, many years. He always patted me on the head, and he was really super sweet. And I always thought, oh, can everyone else have the chastisement? I'm quite happy to be patted on the head. I did get chastised later, but that's another story. And he said, and I said to him, oh, Gurudeva, I want to do blah, blah, blah. And he said, he kind of just, he had this beautiful movement with his right hand where it was like, he slowed everything down. He said, oh, I've got some savor for you. I've got some savor for you. And the savor he had for me was the Navagric temple. And so that was what he engaged me in. And I just think it's linked to another story, actually. Yeah, so he said to me, I want you to help me build the Navagric temple. And I was very excited by this idea. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, I don't know how to deal with all the Indian management. That seems very complicated to me, especially if I don't speak any language. And because Gopinath Prabhu, who I was very friendly with, he had built or was partly building Gopinath Bhavan, Gurudeva had engaged him in managing it. And I said to Gopinath, I can do this. If you're managing it, I can get involved. It makes sense. And anyway, I remember actually there's a kind of sub story in this as well, because I realized that when donating to Srila Gurudev, I realized how special it is, because once you start sending money across to Srila Gurudev, I realized, as a businessman, you can be quite attached to money, right? It's very easy to get attached. But when you're sending money to Srila Gurudev, there's this freedom that comes from sending money where you realize you're not even sending your own money, you're just sending Krishna's money back to Krishna. And you realize you go beyond like, oh, what happens if this is stolen or they misuse it or whatever? Not Gurudev, but people around Gurudev. You just don't know what's going to happen. It goes off into the fog of another country, in the fog of management that's beyond your control. And I very quickly realized, I think Gurudev gave me the insight as I was donating. He gave me the insight not to be completely detached. And that was really beautiful, where I knew that I'd not done my duty, but done my bhakti by transferring the monies without being attached to, obviously I wanted the outcome to be good, and I wasn't lazy in that regard, but I didn't get all mental about, is this being used right? I didn't get controlling about it, which I could easily have, given my nature, that could easily have happened. That didn't happen at all. Anyway, I can't remember how many years it took to build, but my ex-wife and I, we went over for the Navagric Parikram, and forgive me, I can't remember what year this is. Must be maybe 2007, maybe. And it was all, ready. We walked in on the first floor, and we walked in quite incognito. We weren't looking for any recognition or anything. We were just like, I think we arrived on the first day of the Parikram, but in the evening or something, and the whole hall was packed. It was huge. I don't know how many thousands of people you get in that hall. It's huge. And Gurudev was on the Vyasasam with all the sannyasis, and Maharaja spotted. Maharaja is very sharp, he's always on the ball. And he looked up and he saw me and he started waving. He pointed Gurudev, and then Gurudev started waving. And then Gurudev pointed to a banner, and I looked across the hall, and the thing said Yasodanandana Kirtan Hall. And I was like, I don't know, I felt like, in the Sriman Bhagavatam, often the demigods are showering, they're showering flower petals on your head or something. I felt like a mixture of that and a mixture of, I never asked, I didn't do this for, in the West, you often do charity to hope that you get your name on a building or something. That wasn't my mood at all. My mood was just, I want to serve my Srila Gurudev. It was quite innocent, actually. So to have my name up there was like, for a moment, I was horrified for a second and didn't want it. And then I thought, wow, if Gurudev wants me to have it, he wants me to have it for a reason. So I'm going to accept it as completely boundless mercy. And then I thought, oh no, it says Yasodanandana Kirtan Hall. It doesn't mention my wife at all. And in Western marriage, it's very different to Indian marriage, with all the feminism and stuff. The woman wants recognition. I thought, oh no, I'm gonna get into trouble later because it's called Yasodanandana Kirtan Hall, not Yasodanandana Kirtan Hall. Of course, she was absolutely as instrumental as I was in that, because we were in business together. So that was a beautiful thing. And I think relating it back, why I'm sharing the story is that it wasn't, Gurudev wasn't doing a material thing there. He was like, I mean, he got me going to India all the time, because he put me on the Bhakti Trust, which meant the Bhakti Trust met twice a year. So I couldn't get out of going to India. I had to go to both Parakrams, because that's where the meetings were. So I ended up going all the time. He knew how to somehow engage my false ego fully into seva, and make my false ego, which is the conditioned, horrible part of myself, adore Gurudev. So instead of, we call it spiritual bypassing, instead of only the higher side of myself coming towards Krishna consciousness, and then I've got this lower side that's kicking and screaming. It was like Gurudev was seducing all of me into Krishna consciousness, not just a bit of me. And this is his brilliance. This is his absolute brilliance in terms of his ability. His loving, affectionate dealings with his devotees is extraordinary. That sense of encouragement and that sense of the benign father is super, super beautiful. And he stokes the greed. He makes you greedy because he makes you feel that feeling you get from doing seva for him. It's no different from when he's on the planet to when he's not on the planet. You just want to do more because it makes you feel so good. And I know it doesn't matter whether the seva is big or small quantitatively. What matters is the quality. And Gurudev is exactly like Lord Ram in that sense. He's into the squirrels, and we're all squirrels, which is why on a lot of our Zoom festivals, Yashodhari and I, we're all about trying to find maybe people who don't normally speak, who are quite shy, but Gurudev wants them to shine. And when they shine, they make us all shine because we hear Gurudev through their words. So thank you, Taran. Thank you for inspiring me to tell you that story. So what's the next number, guys and girls? Number 8. We've got a number 8. Oh yeah, very, very important. This is quite extraordinary. It's kind of linked to a previous story where I talked about how Gurudev and Tripakara Maharaj used to have their banter, their so-called arguments on the Vyasasan, their discussions, their vibrant discussions. And this is that when I came to Srila Gurudev, like some people ask me, when did I join Krishna consciousness? I never joined anything. I became beloved to Srila Gurudev. I was seduced by Srila Gurudev. That's it. There was no joining. There was just seduction. And Gurudev is very, very, very expert at this. And I remember in '96, this whole idea of being a manjari. I mean, you got to remember there had been people in ISKCON who've been in ISKCON for many, many years who were not running around talking about manjari bhav. And had you met me in 1996 and asked me to explain manjari bhav, I would have been scrabbling around to put together more than one sentence. Somehow, and I find this very mystical and very incredible, through Gurudev's teachings, and both directly and through his sannyasis and the senior ladies, this whole beautiful goal of being this swarup of being a manjari was seeded in my consciousness back in 1996. Did I know what it meant? No. Did I understand it? No. Did I know that it was the be end and end all? Yes. Did I know it was our goal? Yes. Did I know it was important? Yes. So it was almost like he created a special place. You know how sometimes people love little treasure boxes, and you open up the wooden box and you put your special poems in there or your special verses. It's almost like he put a special box in my heart marked Manjari Bhav. And I knew that in my listening and my consciousness, year after year after year, that I needed to listen out for more of this stuff and put it into that treasure box, because I knew that was really important. And he put that goal in my heart. And it's so expert, because when I meet new devotees now, I'm thinking, wow, I really want them to understand what the goal is. It's so important to know what the goal is. You know, the great philosopher Hegel, who's a wonderful Western philosopher, one of the ones worth reading, who Bhakti Srila Maharaj is talks about him a lot. Hegel talks about the teleological nature of the human being, which means that the human being is animated and activated through purpose. So when you have found your purpose, everything in you becomes supercharged and you gallop towards your purpose. And this is Gurudev's great skill to identify that, transmit it, and to do so to such a, I wouldn't even call myself a neophyte devotee at the time. I was pre-neophyte, but he seeded that in my consciousness. He created that treasure box in my heart very early on that that allows me to bear the fruit much later on now.
Number 6, Prabhu.
What's that, Ajay?
Number 6.
Number 6. Okay.
Somebody asked for it.
Oh, this is quite funny. It's a little risky, actually, and I hope it's understood in the manner it's meant. So I was in Turkey. In fact, what had happened is one of our devotees had tried to put Gurudev up in Turkey, in Istanbul, but it all sort of fallen apart. So at the last moment, I was called up and said, "Do you know anyone in Turkey?" There wasn't a big Gurudev Sangha in Turkey, in Istanbul. We need to put Gurudev up and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I phoned up a friend of mine who's not a devotee, but he's a sensitive and cultured man. I explained the elevation of Gurudev, you know, just what an incredible soul Gurudev is. And this man was happy to facilitate Srila Gurudev in Istanbul. And so we flew over. So he's a Turkish guy, but I flew over with my ex-wife and we spent some time. We had business in Istanbul as well. That's how I knew him. And so Gurudev was in this apartment in Istanbul with Maharaja and Brajanath, etc. Anyway, one day I was there, and Brajanath, he likes to have a bit of a joke, you know. He's a bit, both Brajanath and Maharaja, they're jokers, and so am I. So I don't mind one being thrown at me from time to time. So I think Brajanath he'd started talking about in the ISKCON history, because it was started in New York, where there are a lot of Jewish people in New York. I think at one time or at the beginning, most of the gurus in ISKCON were Jewish, and I think they all fell. So Gurudev was talking about, I think Brajanath was getting Gurudev. It was a double act, and basically Gurudev was talking about how Jewish people are cheating people, right? So anyway, I left the apartment and we had some lunch by the Bosphorus, my ex-wife and I was very distracted. And I said, I'm really, I can feel it as I'm talking now. I said, I'm really disturbed. You know, I don't run around identifying myself very much as a Jew, right? It's not like something I'm particularly fixated on. But somehow he tickled my identity. He'd done something to my identity. And I was like, this is not right. I can't, there was no way I could leave Istanbul without bringing this up with Srila Gurudev and actually challenging him, actually. Because he told us not to fear it. He told us we should not be fearful of asking questions. So I went back. I was a little afraid, to be honest, but I still said my bit. I sat by him. He was on a chair and I was on the floor. I think I was on my knees. So even though I'm very tall, he was looking down on me and in a very loving way. And I said, Srila Gurudev, you said that Jewish people are cheating people, Gurudev, but all of my relatives are Jewish, Gurudev. I don't have any non-Jewish relatives. So this is making me very unhappy. He looks at me. It's so funny. His blue eyes, beautifully, just like totally sweet. And he goes, "Oh, I didn't mean you." So there I am. There are 14 million Jews in the world. Suddenly, the other 13,999,999, I didn't care about at all. As long as he didn't mean me, I was fine. And I don't know, it's just how love goes beyond truth. Love goes beyond words. I realized that he was just winding me up. And it was just so beautiful. And so I realized that he was just teasing me. And it was just so delightful being teased. And it just shows you the loving dealings he's willing to have and how he's willing to take some risks with you as well. Because, you know, that kind of thing I could have gone off in a totally different huff and never mentioned it to him. So it was really, really sweet. And I remember that very, very fondly. The motto of the story is he didn't actually believe that Jewish people are cheating people. He's just winding me up. And I really appreciate that. Next number, guys. What do you want to hear? Number, just to make sure you're all still awake. Number 1. Oh, Shama Sundari, Haribal. Oh, yeah. This is, I still don't fully understand this story to this day. Okay, so Kartik 1996. Oh, we've got another number after that. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Kartik 1996. Nanga Mahini, my ex-wife and I, we went off to, we got Diksha, and we came back to the apartment in somewhere called Temple and Garden. It's on the thoroughfare as you go in past ISKCON on the left-hand side, and you just carry on. It's on the left, and it's a pretty basic ashram. It's nothing fancy, but it's decent, and it's got these really big grills on the windows. I mean, when you lock it, you lock your room. There's nothing can get in and out. You know, absolutely secure. So when we went back after Diksha, we opened the door, and there's a massive parrot flying around our room. I mean, a massive parrot. There's just no way that parrot could get in our room. It was extraordinary. And yeah, so after spending about a quarter of an hour, slightly frightened I was going to get pecked to death by the parrot, but trying to get the parrot out the window, we saw Gurudeva, I think, the next morning, and I told Gurudeva about the parrot. And the way he looked at me is he knew. I felt that he'd actually sent me that parrot as a sign. And you know, Gurudev's mystical. There's another story. I'm hoping the right number comes up. There's an amazing mystical story that shows beyond doubt. I mean, the parrot story. This story you can say, okay, well that sounds interesting, but there's another story I have which is just like absolutely Gurudev's direct hand in it. It's almost like he was literally picking up the pen and writing the story. It was so mystically charged. I mean, that's the amazing thing about our philosophy. It's what's called theistic, deistic. Deistic is where the Lord creates everything and lets us run under our own laws, but doesn't intervene. Theistic is where the Lord is intervening. And in this case, when you have Guru, the Lord is intervening. There's no doubt about it. The Lord through Guru is an active, real principle in one's life, which is why astrologers can't always tell devotees astrology, because the astrology, if you work on your birth chart, won't be able to keep up with the change as a result of becoming disciple. However, I don't think that applies to hand reading, because I've watched my own hand change over the last 6 months quite significantly, and I think that has to do not with the astrology, but it has to do with the transformation that happens through relationship with Guru. So that was number 1, and somebody's asked me number 9. Yeah, number 9 is a really important story. So I think earlier on I said how I was very happy to be patted on the head. I was very happy to be charmed by Srila Gurudev and petted, basically, and felt very comfortable being about 5 years old in my emotional state with Srila Gurudev. And I'm thinking, okay, all that sort of chastisement stuff, that's for other people or for another lifetime, you know. So so what happened was, we had some differences of opinion at management level about how to manage money and blah blah blah, and we went over to Malaysia. Budara went over, Radhakanta went over, I went over. I think Vaikanas Maharaj was there, Madhav Maharaj and Brajnath was there. And I remember, I don't remember the exact details, but I'd written a letter. And Gurudev got this letter out, and he was basically saying, no, this is incorrect, the way you've written it or something. He was telling me off. And for some insane reason, I actually had the temerity to disagree with Gurudev and said, no, Gurudev, you haven't understood what I was trying to say. I laugh at myself when I did. And as I was saying this, he kind of looked at me like, you got to be kidding, right? You got to be kidding. And I just felt the full ferocity of his eyes, his gaze. And it was like, I can't actually tell you of all the bodily experiences I was experiencing then, because it would be impolite on a show like this but I mean, everything, like I felt absolutely mortified. But what was really interesting is while he was chastising me for the first time, I felt that he was slapping me and healing me simultaneously. he was giving me the mercy to take his chastisement. While he was giving me the chastisement, I could actually feel it. And it gave me this surge of confidence with Srila Gurudev that, wow, if I can take his chastisement and feel uplifted by it, then this mercy that he's giving me is very, very powerful, very powerful. And it really, when I was saying about the Abhidheya side, the greed and the greed for the greed, when you feel that injection of mercy coming into you, I call it grace. I love the word grace. When you feel grace enter into your heart, when you feel grace entering into every of your 37 trillion cells in your body, you feel totally empowered and protected by the love of your Srila Gurudev. It really accelerates your greed, which is what we need for Krishna consciousness, because Krishna consciousness is not a relationship that's static. It's a relationship that's always shifting. Radha and Krishna, Vipralamba Sambhog all the time. So this shifting, this dynamic, kinetic, energetic, restless emotion of Krishna consciousness requires that constant injection of grace, which I felt deeply from Srila Gurudev ironically, through being chastised. I had someone ask me 78, but it's we only go up to 27. Oh, I got a number 11. Ooh, it's exciting. I don't know which is which. Oh yeah, this is really, really important. Okay, so can't remember. I think it was around 2001. There's a relationship that I needed to alter the nature of the relationship. I probably did so in a very faulted manner, and I probably made a lot of mistakes, but I felt like I needed to ask Srila Gurudev before changing the relationship. So I phoned Srila Gurudev and I said, Srila Gurudev, I can't associate with this person anymore, And I mean, this is what's so amazing about Srila Gurudev, is his instructions are often so brief, but so powerful. And he said 3 words that he said many times on the Vyasa-sam, but because he said it to me personally, it's been like a mantra that's been spun into my psyche and has permeated every part of my being possible. He said this, well, firstly, his preamble was, this is just a material matter, do not worry. And then he said, but do not criticize. And this was such a profound instruction, because it doesn't look that powerful when you just read those 3 words. But when you're in the process of a major change in a major relationship, like this also applied later on, although Srila Gurudev wasn't on the planet at the time, when my marriage fell apart, I never, because of this instruction that went into me, I never criticized my ex-wife. My mother, who's not a devotee, who's obviously very loyal, very loving to me, she's a very beautiful woman, she would have loved to have criticized my ex-wife. It's natural for the mother to do so. In such a situation, I would not ever allow her to do so. And I would tell her, if you want to do that, you'll have to do that with your friends. I didn't want to speak it. I didn't want to be party to it ever. And in the case of the first relationship, which was with a devotee, it was such a powerful instruction, because the friendship with that person that I had to break relations with at the time, it re-manifested later, several years later. And because I knew I'd never criticized this person, and I knew that I'd followed Gurudev's instruction, my heart always felt whole and healed and sweet in relation to that person. And I learned something else as well, which Srila Gurudev didn't tell me directly, but I felt, is that not only did I not criticize both people actually, but I realized that it's like when the cup is full of water, it's not going to be full of air. If it's full of air, it's not going to be full of water. So you have to fill it with something. So I felt it easier not to criticize by glorifying them. So if someone was a person, the first person, rather than just sort of walk out the room or do nothing, I would switch it and say, no, this person, they have this wonderful quality, this wonderful quality, this wonderful quality. And it's such a powerful lesson. And it really makes your heart strong with bhakti. And this is what Gurudev's This is very much about Gurudev's loving dealings. Gurudev's loving dealings, keeping that heart. You know, what Gurudev teaches me every day is that we're gardeners of our heart. Our heart is like a garden. And if you know anything about gardening, which frankly I don't know much about it, but I watch other people garden. I watch my mum garden. She's a very good gardener. But it needs, you need good soil, you need good nutrients in the soil, you need to be planting the right things, you need to be talking to them, the plants, you need to be watering them, they need the sunlight. There's a lot of things that go on in gardening. And if you leave the garden for any period of time, it's going to be chaos in there. And so the garden of our heart, the love garden of our heart, needs daily tendering and tender love. And Gurudev is the sunlight in that garden, as well as being, he's our gardener, we're the sub-gardener taking instructions from him. So that was, what number was that? I can't even remember what I was talking about there. Was that number 9? Yeah, it was 9. Okay, the next one is number 11, I believe. Oh no, sorry, do you know, Chris? Well, that was 11. Thanks, Yashadari. That was lovely. So the next one is number 23. Number 20. Oh yeah. This is an amazing one. I don't know. Again, incredible. So I was in Badger. I don't know which year. It would have been maybe in the late 90s. And I was on the morning walk. Maybe there were about 30 of us there. And I just sort of started walking away on my own. And I was about maybe 100 meters away from the party, just watching the cows. And then Gurudev starts splitting from the party and walks towards me. He doesn't actually stop really to have a chat with me as he's walking by almost, or he maybe stops for a second or so. He just said, he didn't say, how are you or anything. He kind of just went straight in for the kill. He just goes, you must read more Leela. You must hear more Leela. And I was like, yeah, totally. And I was always much more lopsided. I was more into the tattva than the Leela. And I remember once there was one very senior, wonderful sannyas, and their Leela was very high and very beautiful, but I could hardly stay in the room. I just couldn't, I didn't have the receptacle for it. But I could tell all those years ago, and I feel like I'm getting the benefit of that now, is that instruction again, the number of instructions Gurudev gave me, and they stay in you forever, and they change in meaning. And I realize how, in the process of Krishna consciousness and working all the way up from Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha all the way through to praying, you have the whole Anatta Nivritti process, but you have a process of Artha Pravritti. So the Anatta Nivritti is the cleaning of the heart, the cleaning of the unwanted things in our hearts. The Artha Pravritti is the installing of that which is precious in the heart. It's the artha. We want the artha, we want to get rid of the anatta. So the artha pravritti is what we're replacing. We're giving up our bad habits and we're putting in the good stuff. And the good stuff comes in through Leela. Because if we're meditating on that Leela, it's going to make us feel and be related to Krishna consciousness in a very, very true way. Because Gurudev is actually, he is giving us true relationship with the transcendental personalities in the spiritual world. This is what sometimes I think we can easily forget. This is not some kind of, I remember Krishna Kanta from the UK said it really nicely on our 59-hour Zoomakram celebration of Srila Gurudev Pushpanjali. He said, Krishna consciousness is not a religion, it's a relationship. So it's like Srila Gurudev is, if we just landed in Buckingham Palace where the Queen lives, and we have no right to be there, we have no uniform, we have no saver, we're just going to walk around the halls of Buckingham Palace looking like an idiot, not knowing what to do. It's going to be embarrassing, it's going to be kind of like a bit weird. But if you're introduced to Buckingham Palace, to maybe the Queen's Chief of Staff, and they have your bio and your CV, and you've agreed what you're doing, what your saver is, you're good to go. You know what you're doing, you're part of the household, you've got relationship. Well, we're being invited to the greatest spiritual party in any world, material or transcendental, that exists in Goloka Vrindavan. And Gurudev is giving us that transcendental invite, that beautiful invite to the most sacred kunj that exists in the transcendental world. So this is the reality. This is what is really going on. And so when he's saying to me, you must listen to more lila, he's saying you must listen to more lila and have and I will give you, the implication is I'll give you the mercy, I'll give you the grace to be able to hear the lila. He'll empower me to do so. So if I can't do it, because I can't, I can rely on him to do it for me. And actually, I just remembered an amazing, really, really sweet story, actually, which I'm going to add as 28 and add it on to this number 23, which is that after Srila Gurudeva disappeared, it was, I don't know, about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Uma Didi came over from India. I love Uma Didi. She's just such an incredible devotee. And I had committed to going to four programs one day after another to listen to Uma Didi. And I remember on the first occasion, I went to listen to Uma Didi, and my ability, some people's ability to understand, Hindi-based English, I'm not very good at it. And I was really frustrated because I couldn't understand anything. So I came back home going, Gurudeva, that was terrible. I've got to do 3 more. It's like, I'm going to fall asleep if I do that again because I can't understand anything. And then Gurudeva really came in my heart. He said, Yasodanandana, he said, the problem with you is you go there because you want to enjoy the experience. You go there to serve. You serve with your shravan, you serve with your ears. And so I went back on the second day. It was a totally different experience. It was like magic. And I think I didn't just go for 4, I went to 14 on a row. I even went to Birmingham after work one day. I was so, captivated by Uma Didi. It was absolutely beautiful. So that's an interesting extra story. Next story. Oh yeah, number 7. This is really, really important. It's a bit like the don't criticize story. I remember very early on when Ananga Mohini, my ex-wife, and I, we were at Srila Gurudeva's feet. I can't remember whether it was in the UK or in India, but he turned to both of us and he said, when you're upset with each other, he said, you apologize to her and she apologizes to you. He didn't clarify in what order. It didn't matter the order, that was the point. You just say sorry. And such a simple story, such a simple instruction. But actually I did apply it a lot to my ex-wife, probably not enough, otherwise she may not have been my ex-wife, but I do try and apply it in my daily life. Not always successfully, but sometimes. And I notice how I have had situations that have been quite, say, tense in a relationship. And by going back to that instruction that Srila Gurudev gave me, it makes me, instead of me feeling like in a false ego situation, in a purely materialistic situation, if I'm just a materialist, I'm not Krishna consciousness, and you and I, Ajay, have a fallout, I don't want to say sorry to you because my false ego doesn't want to give anything up. But this changes the whole game, because not only does my real ego, not only does my subtle body and my false ego actually wants to apologize to you, because my false ego wants to look good to Gurudev. My false ego wants to do what's right by Gurudev, because Srila Gurudev has seduced all parts of me, not just my higher self. He's also engaged my lower self. So my lower self actually does want to engage in apologizing, because doing so is going to please Srila Gurudev. And then all sorts of magical things come out of that. I've just had many, many situations where I've been the first that's come off the fence and said, listen, I'm really sorry for doing that. And it just it's sort of the reciprocation in the other person's heart, especially as a devotee, because devotees are so beautiful and sensitive. As soon as you do that, the other devotee just sort of opens up and magical things happen. And what's really beautiful about that is if you have a relationship where that's happened and you apologize, and then it all turns out really beautifully, you then have what I would say, the bank account of love. You have the confidence that your relationship can survive a bump, and that makes it stronger. And I think that's very important in Seva, for example, is that we learn to do this properly, because then our teams can be stronger together. That was number, what was that number? 20 something, wasn't it? Number 7 now. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just did 7. Thanks, Yashidara. You're on the ball as usual. What number would you like next, and how much? Ajay, I assume you'll call the close of time when you're ready. What number would you like next, guys? Number 2. Yeah, number 2 is a very early story. So in 1996, what actually happened, just a bit of preamble. In 1995, I was in Carnaby Street, London, which used to be a very trendy street in London. And it was a Saturday, and everyone was shopping, spending money, blah, blah, blah. I was there with my ex-wife and a couple of friends, and it was, buying clothes, getting a haircut, that kind of thing. And I remember thinking, I never liked shopping anyhow. Always bored me. And I remember thinking, there's got to be more. It was just a question I had in my head. There's got to be more to life than material acquisition. That was my question. And then I saw a couple of Hare Krishnas. I didn't know they were Hare Krishnas, but they looked like spiritual types because they had funny robes on and things, right? And one of them was a guy called, one of them was called Sri, the taller guy, and the other one was called Jagan Mohan, who's still a brahmachari with Premanandan. And I'm still friendly with him. He's a wonderful brahmachari. And I remember him talking to me for about an hour on his challenge with celibacy, which quite frankly wasn't that captivating. I wasn't particularly interested in celibacy, nor did I understand what the point of it was, but I liked him. And I actually enrolled him in a course called the Landmark Forum, which costs, I think, £295. I have no idea where a brahmachari gets that money from. And he gave me 3 books, and I gave him £10 for it. And he said, by the way, you may have trouble getting in touch with me because I'm moving. He was moving out of ISKCON actually at the time. But why don't you ring this guy? And he wrote this down, this number. I remember it to this day, 01224 314 628 in Aberdeen in Scotland. He said he's an American fella. He knows business quite well. I think you'll really get on with him. And he wrote down the name Michael Geary, which I could understand, this name, funny name, which I didn't understand at all, called Budara. I wouldn't have been able to pronounce it then. So that was in around January 95. Then in March 95, I was having lunch at my desk in Bath, about 150 miles away to the west. And I opened my drawer. I saw these books. And I was like, okay. Remember the number. I phoned this chap out of the blue. He gets this call. I know now he did what's called a Prashna chart. So he did an astrological chart based on the time that I called. And he just started doing, I didn't ask him to do it. He just started telling me about my life, and very accurately too, based on the time that I'd called him. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. That's how our relationship started. And I said, well, I've got to get to know you. And I don't know if he was coming down to London anyhow or how he did it, but he came to a lunch in Bath. Bath is actually a city in the West Country of England. It's actual city. So he came to stay with me in Bath. I put him up in a hotel. He did lots of astrological readings. And for most of that year, he sort of drip fed me Krishna consciousness until around September, where I said, where do you get all this wonderful stuff from? And he said, oh, I get it from a place called Vrindavan, which is like the spiritual planet on earth. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty good. Let's go. So I said, listen, I'll fund the trip for both of us. And can you be my guide? And he said, on one condition. I said, what? He said, if I tell you to stand on your head and chant Coca-Cola, you do it. I said, I got what he meant. He said, like, you don't know what you're doing in this place, just do as I tell you. I was like, no problem. So that was basically, so we went there for 11 days. And that's where in Vrindavan, overlooking Sevakunj, where we were having lunch with Padmanabh Goswami, one of the Radha Raman acharyas. What was his name? Narada Muni, now is Tridandi Maharaj, came in like Tigger out of Winnie the Pooh, fully enthusiastic. Oh, there's this Mahabhagwa, this incredible guru. He wants to travel to the West, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have a clue what was going on. I was like a dog, listening to human language, but it all sounded very exciting. But Gurudev wasn't there in Vrindavan that month when I went out there with Budara. So I came back to England. I told my wife at the time, my ex-wife, I said, darling, I found the absolute truth. And she said, what is it? I said, oh, it's Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. At which point she sort of freaks out because her mother is a evangelical Christian who thought the Harrys were kind of like devil worshippers, right? So So I was thinking, okay, this is going to put a bit of pressure on my marriage. Oh, I don't know what to do, and I haven't really got a clue what I'm doing. So I had the mad idea that I would go out to Vrindavan next month with my ex-wife. So I was then her guide. So while I had Buddha as my guide, who'd been in Krishna conscious for 26, 27, 28 years and knew what he was talking about, she had at best Forrest Gump guiding her around Vrindavan, clueless as anything. And so we flew out together. And I was in Ganga Prasad one evening, and bridge of Ganga Prasad was always lovely to me. I'd always have an orange juice there or something. And sitting under the fan. And then, oh gosh, what's her name? Kalimbi. She comes in from America. She comes in and she starts talking about Srila Gurudev. And Srila Gurudev is going to Mathura. He's leaving for Navarik tomorrow from Mathura. So I was like, I've got to get there. So I think he was leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning. So somehow we get a bus over to Mathura. We go into the kitchen. We go into the mutt. We go into his room. And it was a really intense scene. So we'd never met Gurudev. I was meeting Gurudev for the first time, my ex-wife and I. And the room, when I've seen it again, the room's not that big, but it seemed like it was like something out of Alice in Wonderland. It seemed like it was about 100 meters long with Srila Gurudev at the end. And I remember going in, and all the brahmacharis remembered me from the previous month. So they're like, yeah, Harry Bowl, take sannyas. And I'm like, I'm with my wife. What are you talking about? But they were like super into, and she didn't know what sannyas was anyhow, so she was okay. And I just remember Gurudev, he just gesticulated with his right hand again. He did this slow motion thing. And what he was saying, he was basically saying, we've got this one. He's in the bag. He's inside the tent. We fished him out from the sea. We fished him. We've got him from the great oceans of despair. We fished out this big whale. And we've, because I don't know if you guys know me, but I'm a big guy. So we fished him out of the water and he's ours. And he's with Radha now. He's with me. I mean, I'm adding some poetry now. I wasn't thinking this at the time, but I felt at the time that it was all in good time. Everything has it. That's what Gurudev's amazing skill is. His timing is just amazing. He'll only put you through a test you can pass. He's not going to put you through a test you fail. So if anything's coming in your life, everyone should remember, if you're having a challenge in your life, do not worry about that challenge, because Gurudev would not give you that test in your life if you couldn't pass it. And you can pass it because you can hold on to Srila Gurudev's lotus feet. So he's super merciful in that way. You want any more stories?
Any more numbers, guys? You can say number 3. Let's go by 22. Somebody.
22. We got 22. Oh yeah, this is super important one. I think he said this on more than one occasion. So he created something called the Bhakti Trust, which was meant to be some kind of management body made up of partly Indians, partly Westerners. I have to say we were totally hopeless as a body, totally unable to do anything constructive. But we did learn a lot. And one of the things he said to us more than once, but I remember particularly in Italy, he said, always manage with love and affection. That was his simple mantra. That's his tool. And I think this is so important because, like, I'm doing a lot of seva right now, and I think time is often quite pressured, and this is a whole different subject. Relationship with time. I think as devotees, our relationship with time is not always that healthy. But when we when we have enough time, when we schedule our day properly, that we create an environment where our hearts can function. When everything's too rushed, our hearts don't really function properly. We're in our heads and we're always like one step behind. But when we've got enough time and we're dealing with the sensitivities and the subtleties of relationships, if the other person feels like you love them, if they can feel that love from you, that affection, that's not coming just from you, but is coming from the river, the current of Gurudev's heart, connected to you, and they're getting that paramparik, they're getting that connection with Nityananda Prabhu through you, then anything can be done in a team. Messes can happen, nonsense can happen, Mistakes can happen. These things don't matter. If you have love and affection, you can overcome all these things so beautifully. It's the most important thing. And whenever I don't feel the love and affection in my heart in a particular situation, it's what I pray to God. I beg Gurudev, Gurudev, please let me find that current of love and affection, which is connected to grace and mercy through your heart, to run through my heart, to connect with whoever it is that I'm serving with. And those that serve with me, they'll tell you some days, they can do a report card. Some days I'm better than others, and I'm better with some people than others. Some people trigger me more, some people trigger me less. I'm a conditioned soul just like the next person. But it's a beautiful thing to know that the real management tool, I've been to London Business School, which is one of the, usually it's in the top 3 every year in the world. It's a top business school. They never teach you to manage with love and affection. But this is the key ingredient that actually Krishna consciousness has over any business establishment. When you can really beg for that from Gurudev and really operate from that platform, there's nothing more powerful than that. Because that's the nature of the soul. The soul wants to live with a love, serving Krishna with love and affection. It's the natural state of the soul. I've got 18 coming in and then 17. 18 is quite a story. So basically, I won't go through all the boring material, gory details of why and how my marriage broke up from a materialistic point of view. But basically, had you told me 7 days before my marriage broke up that it was going to break up, I would have told you that I was going to be utterly devastated and unable to function. So when it did happen, the day before Janmashtami, I was actually unable to function and totally devastated. So it wasn't a surprise. I loved my wife, and I still have affection for her as a sister, but life moves on. So what happened was, when it was clear, it was around 9 in the morning, it was clear the marriage was over on the day before Janmashtami. And I was unable to get out of my bed, I think until 6 p.m. I was so devastated. And then my cleaner came in, and I think she got me a glass of water. I got showered, and I said, I'm going to go across London to stay with my mum, because I really don't want to be on my own tonight. It's a very lonely feeling. So I went over to my mum and I said, Mum, marriage has collapsed. Please just let me just stay here and sort of dribble into my chest and sort of just generally go catatonic for a day or so, because I'm just beside myself. And I said, please don't ask me any questions, and please don't try and fix anything. Just let me just have a tomato soup and watch some television or something. I mean, So then when I went to bed, I remember going to bed in a mood with Srila Gurudev. I felt like I was about 5 years old. And I just said to Gurudev, it was very simple. There was no mantras in it or anything. It was like, Gurudev, I don't even know if I have the strength to brush my teeth in the morning. I have so little desire to live. I don't even know. You remember, I did meet my wife when I was 18, so it was a long relationship. And I met her before I was a devotee. And I earnestly didn't know how I was going to get up in the morning. And so I went to bed just saying to Gurudev, just please help me, just help me. I don't even know what to ask you, just help me. When I woke up the next morning, which was Janmashtami, I remember actually not remembering that my marriage had collapsed for about 3 minutes. And I felt this lightness in my psyche. And when I remembered what had happened, I was like almost observing myself, sort of shaking my head going, how come I'm so happy? Doesn't make any sense. And I realized that Gurudev had done some kind of operation overnight. And I remember that day, I met her that day, and we had a discussion. We realized there was no going back, and yesterday had been the end. And I remember walking from the apartment to Victoria along the River Thames. And I remember I saw 3 violinists playing together. And I remember, I don't normally have cash on me, but I happened to have a £5 note in my pocket. I took it out and I put it into their wherever they collect money. I said, that is my testament, that's my vow, that this lesson is always going to trigger me for my heart to expand. I'm never going to go, there's no stasis in this life. There's no staying still. You either go back in your heart and you get regretful and bitter, or you go forward and you grow and you accept your Gurudev's love. And I thought, I've had so much grace last night from my Gurudev to recover from this situation. And not just recover, but bounce. And I remember that night on Janmashtami, Tapasvi Maharaj was there, Madan Gopal was there, Tridandi Maharaj was there, and they were all like amazed, like, oh, okay, this guy's marriage has just collapsed after 20 something years. But he looks as happy as anything. And that was by totally Gurudev's mercy. That is one of my sort of evidential stories of Gurudev's personal intervention into my life. That was 18. Oh yeah, 17. This was in Badger. Yeah, this shows the Shakti of Srila Gurudev. So in Badger in 1996, I was on that first tour. And I remember that we were in the school, big school room, the kind of community hall. And Srila Gurudev it was the first time everyone had seen Srila Gurudev together. And Badger was an important community in America to win over, really, yeah, there are lots of senior Prabhupada disciples. And so it was really full and it was really tense. And you had the guys at the front, not very many of them, who were like super pro Gurudev. They were the ones that brought Gurudev over. And then you had, so they were maybe 10%. And then you had about 45% who were neutral. And then you had the other 45%, and you could tell them because they had their arms folded at the back of the room. You know, they're the hard nuts, yeah. And you could just tell there was a lot riding on this. And Gurudev did two things that were just evidentially mystical and beautiful at the same time. Firstly, all the honor he got, you could see it was going to his Gurudev. You could see that Param Gurudev was being honored fully by Gurudev. But secondly, you could see the intimacy and the sweetness of the relationship between Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. How he honored Srila Prabhupada taught me from that day onwards, not only how important Srila Prabhupada is, but how important Srila Prabhupada's devotees are. And I always think that actually, I feel like I'm the trustafarian. A trustafarian is someone who's come into a lot of money, not by their own endeavor, but by the endeavors of their parents or their grandparents. And I feel like in bhakti terms, that's us. We haven't done the Nama Sankirtan 7 days a week, book distribution 7 days a week, living in the mutt at the age of 18, you know, doing that hard work that they did in ISKCON. I know some Indian brahmacharis have done this. I've not done this. What got established in the West was extraordinary by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And so Srila Gurudev, by his honoring, by his totally sincere, irrefutable love for Srila Prabhupada and connection with Srila Prabhupada, he won over that entire room, and he inculcated within me not only this love for Srila Prabhupada, which I already had, but this reverence and love for Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples, which is so essential in our understanding of Krishna consciousness. And also the importance of understanding of the unity of Guru, like Guru is diverse, but also united. And how when we honor Prabhupada, we're actually honoring Gurudev. And when we honor Gurudev, we're honoring Prabhupada. And that applies in multiple situations. And we're super strong when we properly observe and respect each other's Guru. And everybody came to Gurudev. I don't think there was anyone left behind. Okay, the list of the stories I haven't spoken about is getting smaller.
I think now you'll have to find yourself what is left.
Yeah, I love telling the somebody's been keeping count. I'm going to tell the muffin story because it's a personal favorite of mine. So I wasn't actually there for the muffin story, although I've told it so many times, it's almost like I have been or was there. But this Indian lady came up to Srila Gurudev in a queue of people offering gifts to Gurudev, and she offered him a muffin. And Srila Gurudev took the muffin, and Madhav Maharaj, who was very but told Srila Gurudeva in no uncertain terms he wasn't going to be eating that muffin. And so Gurudev, no problem, Madam Maharaja. I've got my orders, as it were. And anyway, they were taking, Madhav Maharaj and Vrinda and Brajnath were taking his tray out that night to clean it. And what they realized is that when they took everything off the tray, what Gurudev had done somehow during the day is he'd excoriated everything from the muffin inside out, but just left the outside there. So the muffin had looked like it was not eaten, but it was all eaten from the inside, which is just so Gurudev. I mean, that mischievous monkey side of Gurudev is so beautiful. But I also think it's a really sweet analogy, because we may end up, once we come to Srila Gurudev, we may end up being in the same body. We may end up even being in the same country. We may end up not changing ashram. So the muffin on the outside may stay the same, but he changes everything in our heart on the inside. So I feel that muffin story is an expression of how Gurudev changes our heart very beautifully. The outside may remain the same, but everything changes on the inside. Oh, there's the other favorite story I really want to tell is, this is an example of Gurudev's personal intervention. Quite an extraordinary story. This, again, I don't know what year it is, maybe late 90s, maybe 99. And I was on a train, and I remember it was again, these probabilities all stacked up against this happening. So I was on a train line I didn't normally go on. I was somewhere where I wasn't normally, it wasn't my normal sort of workplace. And also there'd just been an accident. So often I'd go first class, but I chose consciously to go economy because there'd been a crash where everyone in first class got smashed around, and I thought it was safer to go to economy. And I sat in a 4-seater area, and it was just me and this other guy. And I looked at him and I thought, oh, I just thought, it doesn't look that interesting. I probably won't talk to him. Because I'm fairly chatty to people I don't know, but I'd sort of made up my mind that I didn't want to speak to him. Anyway, little did I know, as he woke up, he caught my eye. And we started talking. He started telling me, oh, he was over from Australia, which is a long way away. He was coming over for the World Rugby, and he was going home. And so I thought, oh yeah, that's why I didn't want to speak to him, because although I played rugby, it's not a conversation I can have really. It's pretty boring. And then he suddenly said, well, I can do my Australian accent. He said, on my way home, he said, I'm going via India. He said. I said, oh, whoa, where are you going in India? He said, yeah, I'm going to Goa. I thought, Goa. I mean, that's where all the tourists go, right? And then he starts saying, yes, but on my way from Goa, I can't remember what it was, but he said, I'm going to this other place because I've got a mate of mine, he said, who wants me to meet his teacher. And it's in this place, I can't pronounce the name. He brought out a piece of paper, crinkled piece of paper. And I uncrinkled it and I looked at it and it was Vrindavan. I said, you're going to Vrindavan? What are you going to Vrindavan for? He said, you know the place? I said, yeah, I have an apartment there because I know this place. Yeah, he said, I'm going to Vrindavan. Well, he didn't say that. I'm going to this place to meet my mate's teacher. I said, do you happen to know the name of the teacher? He said, that's even harder to pronounce, he says. He gets out another piece of paper, right? And I'm like, it's Narayana Maharaj. I'm like, what the hell are you going to see Narayana Maharaj for? I mean, this guy's about as far from a devotee as you can imagine. So I was like, wow. So anyhow, it also happened to be Kartik. So, and it so happened my wife was out there, my ex-wife. So basically, I arranged to get him a taxi from the airport in Delhi directly to my wife, who took him directly to Gurudev to get darshan. Boom, job done, perfect, right? And this is all pre-WhatsApp, by the way. And then a year later, I'm sitting at my desk. I think we're now in the year 2000. I'm tapping away. I suddenly get this bing. This email comes in from someone I've never heard of before. And the email basically said, dear, I don't even know if they knew my name. I just want you to know, in fact, I don't even know how they got my name. I just want you to know that you met my father on a train about a year and a bit ago, and you sent him to, to this teacher, and you didn't know at the time, but my father a very bad heart, and his health was significantly declining. And he's now died. And he said on his deathbed that his meeting with that person was the most important thing that happened in his life. And he wanted us to thank you. I was like, wow. And about 10 years later, I met Damodar Priya in Australia. She's a lawyer, really great woman who I've known for many years. And we were on I hadn't known her well, but I was on a paracram with her after Gurudev's disappearance. And I started telling her that story. And she goes, no, she said, I've got goose pimples. She said, I've got goosebumps hearing that story. She said, I've known that story for years. The guy, oh yeah, sorry, I missed a bit of the story out. The reason why I had to send him was because his mate had dropped out of the tour. So he didn't know who he was going to stay with. So he needed some help, right? And the mate was her stepfather. So she had known the same story for many years, and that a guy from England had helped him, but she had no idea who it was. So that was a really nice, yeah, it was an amazing story. I mean, the probability of that is just insanely low for that to happen. Incredible. Cool. I think how are we doing on there are more stories, but I think it's probably long enough. Huh? What do you think, AJ?
Yeah, I think you can go for another 10 minutes or so.
Okay. We've got 3, 4, 10, 12, 14, 15, 19.
You got lots of them.
20. What?
You got lots of them still pending. Maybe one more day we have to do for.
Let's go for. Oh, this is a really cute story. Number 24. We'll go for number 24. Number 24. Yeah. So the first business I ever ran was called the English Teddy Bear Company, and it was everything to do with teddy bears. You know, we made them, we bought them in, t-shirts, pens, jumpers, even little clothes for teddy bears. And we took Srila Gurudev to our teddy bear shop, and we showed him a teddy bear. And I seem to remember at the time about 3,200, 3,500 rupees for the bear. And Gurudev was like, you know, he'd kind of raise his eyebrow, like, you know, kind of, who'd buy this thing for 3,500 rupees? It didn't really make sense. The Indian economy was a very different economy then as well. It was much poorer economy. It didn't have these kind of luxury goods. And anyway, we gave him the bear. Done. Okay, so that's the first part of the story. The second, so that's 1996 on his first tour. And then the second part of the story is in about 2012, I think. And I'm at the house of Mr. and Mrs. Somnath, who are really wonderful devotees, and their daughter. And we're having dinner. And I was talking to the daughter. She was doing her exams, and she suddenly talked about this toy or something that Gurudev had brought her many years ago. And I just had an instinct that I needed to see what it was. And basically what had happened was that when I gave that bear to Srila Gurudev, he gave it to Maharaja to look after. And then he then, in his next travels, he said he'd leave from Mathura to Delhi to stay at the Somnaths. And I think on 2 occasions he asked Maharaja to pack the bear. Maharaja, uncharacteristically for Maharaja, had forgotten. So on the 3rd occasion, he packed the bear himself, and he gave the bear to Mr. Somnath's daughter when she was about 1 year old or something. So that bear, so she was telling me how important this bear was for her exams. And so when I asked her to get the bear, she brought it out. It was the bear that I'd given Gurudev back in 1996. And I just thought that was beautifully symbolic of how we're, I really feel as devotees, each one of us is like a rosebud on a garland around Srila Gurudev's neck. You know, we're all connected through Srila Gurudev. And when you empower me to make an offering to Srila Gurudev like this, I feel close to the Gurudev. And I feel when I hear all the offerings that are on our programs in England, we have 4 people each Sunday giving Pushpanjali, it brings us close to Srila Gurudev, because although each of our relationship with Gurudev is different, there's some essence that's the same that connects us with Srila Gurudev. So these these memories are absolutely vital in order to sort of counter the tatashta nature of our Shakti. You know, we go in and out of connection. And, you know, you like one of those, you know, in India, sometimes the electric sockets aren't always finished that well, so the wire can slightly come out the wall. You know, we're a bit like that, the wires coming in and out of the wall. And these events really help us to really fix that connection with Srila Gurudev, so that that paramparic energy, the Nityananda Prabhu energy can come into us. So I think that's, oh, there are a few more cute ones, but oh, I think you said 10 minutes, so we've probably got 5 minutes to go, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Don't forget to talk about programs coming up. Oh yeah, I will, Yashadari. Yeah, actually, one story that's really special to me is my dad. My dad, who died in the same year that Gurudev disappeared. In fact, he died 1 month before Gurudev disappeared. My dad was a super bright guy who was interested in what I did, but he was agnostic. He didn't have the ability to have faith. But Srila Gurudev really charmed him. And in Holland, he came to Holland, my dad. There were about 250 devotees. I was in the audience. And Srila Gurudev looked out to the audience, and he looked over at me. He always knew how to pick us out. And he pointed to me, and he goes, "Is he your son?" My dad goes, "Yes, he's my son." He goes, "He's my son too." So he said, "Therefore we are brothers," which absolutely makes no biological sense at all, but it made all the sense in the world in the heart. And then a few years later, when my dad was in hospital, I took him the Jaiva Dharma. He never, although he was really bright, he couldn't understand any of the stuff I gave him. He just didn't have the security. But he went through all the gurus from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he goes, no, no, no. And then he goes to Gurudev. He goes to Gurudev's picture, and he taps quite vigorously on the page. He goes, "He's the one for me. He's the one for me." It was so beautiful, because I never had an easy relationship with my dad. My strength relationship was mainly with my mum. But that moment kind of completed everything that was worth having in my relationship with my father. The fact that he didn't see me, because I was behind looking at him doing that. And actually, I was crying watching him do that. I didn't need him to see that. I wanted him to have that experience. I didn't want it to be about my experience. But seeing him do that makes me so thankful that he got the security from Srila Gurudev. He got the glance that's going to change his life forever. So I feel that's a very, very special moment for me. And before I close, Yashadara has very kindly prompted me and said, "Can I just announce an event that's coming up? Do you mind if I do that?"
Please go ahead.
So you may know about it already, and we have a really powerful video, which is about 3 minutes long. If you like, I can play it. And what it is it's called World Sankirtan Day, the International Day of Joy. And it's on the 11th of July, 2021, the day of the Rath Yatra in Puri. And the goal is to organize locally 108 Sankirtans across the world. So like 108 rose petals on a garland, so that we can have like a whole global yajna for Sankirtan, which is the most powerful, most important part of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Because humanity right now is hurting, and there's so much suffering, and we need to be at the forefront of the mission to alleviate some of the suffering from the world and help bring people to the sweetness of true love. Would you mind if I played that video, Prabhu?
Yeah, you can play, Prabhu. Sure.
Is the share function on?
I think it's on. Wait. Yeah, you can share.
Okay. I'll just find the video. It says share screens disabled.
Okay, I can make you co-host. Wait.
Okay, great.
Yeah, now I can do.
Okay, share sound, share. Okay, it's just in downloading mode.
And Prabhuji, our Vijay Krishna Prabhuji is also here. Can you hear me?
Vijay Krishna Haribol Dandavats Prabhu.
Yes, he came specially for you, and he has some. He wants to say a few words to you. He is the one who started this
Beautiful.
program in 11th December
Yes, Kashmir.
2020. So after this video, he will speak. Yeah.
Great, great. Look forward to that a lot. Should be done shortly. Gotta will that wheel so it finishes. Come on.
Oh, she's saying this one is already downloaded. One next to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This one. Yeah, one on the left. Yeah, maybe this one. Yes.
That one?
No, one on the left of Mahaprabhu, I think.
That one.
No, left. Yeah, this one. Yeah, yeah. Looks like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still, for some reason, it still needs to download. I don't know why. Anyway, it won't take long.
I think you need to refresh probably. It doesn't take that much time down.
Well, I've given you Shari control of my screen. Much better than me trying to do anything.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, that's great.
Oh, yes, start.
You okay?
Yeah, that's fine. You can go full screen from the left top corner.
In Kali Yuga, you got to get fired up. Every one of you, chanting, dancing in the heart, like you really mean it.
So if you want to organize a Sankirtan, or you know someone who can organize a Sankirtan, then go to www.worldsankirtanday.com and sign up, basically. And we're going to live stream every Sankirtan onto one website.
That's wonderful, Prabhuji. So nice. And now we have our Vijay Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, you can unmute yourself. He wants to say something to you.
Hare Krishna. Yasodanandana, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for being in this program. Such a heartwarming and really, I mean, touching stories. And especially the one you said about your father was really, I mean, it just touched me. And the bear thing, the Somnath's daughter is Chandrika, and she shared the same story in this program long back. She was like touching, like she said she Gurudev touched by giving her the bear when he was like child. She still had the bear or something like that. I've seen that bear. It's a big one, right? It's a big bear that.
It's like it's got moving arms and legs and everything.
Yeah. So she shared the story also, like in this program. Like you said, it's all connected. I mean, the touching thing that you said is the love. I mean, we should deal things in a loving way, not in a very, controlling and in a very mental kind of way, things like that. I mean, it's really nice of you to come to this program and share the most amazing things Shri Gurudeva has touched your life, and we're grateful to you. And like, especially, I know you are like very near and dear to Shri Gurudev. You have served a lot, like though I may not know that many, but especially that I have seen is the Navadip Natya Mandir, and you contributed a lot for that. And even Shri Gurudev named the Natya Mandir in your name, Yasodanandana Natya Mandir. So it was so nice. Like that's when I got to know about you and your contribution, and like so many days of discussing with Shri Gurudev the way that the Natya Mandir, the temple project should go on and things like that. I've seen the way you work with Shri Gurudev and day in and day out discussing these things. Like it was so nice. I mean, we have been very fortunate to have served Shri Gurudev. We are very much grateful for you, and especially during the centennial, the Bhakti Zoom, the London one that you have started, and the whole team, it's really inspiring. And like we are just following in your footsteps, to be frank. And it's Lavanga Didi and Marish Prabhu. They both kind of talked to me and inspired me basically. So we are trying to. I mean, we try to follow the model that you showed us. It's really. I mean, it just touched the people. I mean, before I was skeptical, I was pessimist. I thought like nobody would even talk for like 15 minutes in the program. But then when we started, it just like, people wouldn't stop. They just want to speak more and more and more and more and more and more. And it just touched, I mean, the whole program clicked just because of the lockdown and this whole pandemic thing going on. I mean, if not for the pandemic, like people would all have been busy. Nobody would have time to sit and listen for 2-3 hours, things like that. So like for the non-devotee, this is a curse, but for us, it's blessing in disguise. The whole thing, we have like whole time, people are all free, and this Zoom and this program, and people have just took to it. I mean, they just grabbed it, the whole thing. So we're grateful for you. I mean, for your initiative, and you have so many different programs, like things have like mushroomed into so many smaller things, like Bhakti Basics and this and that, and so many things. So we're also trying to do something like that a little bit, not too much, we don't have that much time either, but still we are trying to do it. Like we have started like a Saturday series, like to discuss about Shri Gurudev's, different topics, different, books, basically different topics at length. Like for example, we began with the Prahlad, the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. Gurudev published a book, The Fearless Prince in English, from his lectures. So we are trying to like go a little bit deeper and discuss these things. So we are thankful for you for showing us the way during the centennial, because we were all like depressed and dejected, but that we couldn't do much for Shri Gurudev for the centennial. But then this Zoom thing and this program is just satisfied like so many devotees, and especially me. Like it just gave some meaning for the centennial program. So thank you so much for coming and sharing like the most beautiful things with Shri Gurudev.
When Lavanga told me about you starting a program,
Yeah.
and she told me that you're based in Kashmir and you had hardly any bandwidth,
Yeah.
I was really
Just 2G back then.
Huh?
Back then it was just only 2G back then. That's it.
Yeah. I was really inspired. I was thinking, wow, that's beautiful. It's beautiful that you were following what we were doing, and it's beautiful you were doing so with so little facility. I was really impressed, and I knew it would be successful what you were doing, because Srila Gurudev wants it.
Yeah.
Everything we're doing over in the UK, well, it's for the world, it's not just UK, but everything that we're doing, I'm doing with Yashodari. She's like co-Sevak. She's super inspiring and enthusiastic in all of these matters. So I don't want to take any credit without her having equal credit, or possibly more credit. And I feel that once the COVID does go, because there will be, there's life after COVID, I feel that what we've had is an accelerated path into how we can use Maya's technology for Bhakti's benefit. And I don't think this is going to change. I think it will mean that we can have more association, both physical and non-physical association. And so this should carry on, although we should meet together as well, but these Zoom events must carry on.
Same with me here. Like, it's not just me. We had a whole team, like small, boys, and especially Ajay Krishna Prabhu. He has like completely taken the full responsibility, and for the past like 3 months, he's been, handling like so many things. I mean, without the team, it's just impossible for these things to do. So we had a whole team also here, like technical team, translation team, and so many other people, and that's how the program,
Beautiful.
moved.
I really liked the way you do the bio thing is really great, actually. I love that. It puts a lot of pressure on the speaker to come up with something, but it makes, I don't know, kind of creates more intention.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. And we have one more devotee now, Prabhuji, who has associated with you in the past, and he has had some pastimes with you also. He would like to speak, though he is Hindi speaking. He probably has not understood what we said today, because our translation could not go on properly because of the storm in Bangalore. But he would like to say something. Rajesh Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Boliye aap. I will translate it for you. He will speak in Hindi. I'll translate it for you.
सबसे पहले तो मैं श्री पाद यशोद
एक मिनट प्रभु जी, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही, अनम्यूट करें।
मैं इनके चरणों में साष्टांग और इनकी कृपा की याचना करता हूं कि ये मुझे ऐसा आशीर्वाद दें जैसे ये गुरुदेव की सेवा कर रहे हैं। पूरे विश्व में इन्होंने गुरुदेव की सेवा का डंका बजा रखा है। उसी प्रकार से कुछ किंचित मात्र में भी कुछ इनकी कृपा मुझे प्राप्त हो तो मैं भी गुरुदेव की ऐसी सेवा कर सकूं।
प्रभु रुक जाओ, ट्रांसलेट कर देता हूं, फिर बोलना आप। So Prabhuji is saying, first of all, he offers Dandavat Pranam in the lotus feet, and he said, I need blessing from you so that I can do some seva like what you're doing in the whole world, and you are like a flagship in doing the seva. Similarly, he also wants some blessing from you so that he can do some seva like what you're doing. Okay, आप बोलिए प्रभु।
और अभी जो इन्होंने जो बोला और जो इनके जो पीछे जो पिक्चर जो लगी हुई है नवदीप धाम, जो इन्होंने वहाँ जो शो किया हुआ है, जो नवदीप धाम चैतन्य महाप्रभु की, नित्यानंद प्रभु की, उसको देख करके बड़ा अच्छा लगा, बहुत खुशी हुई, बड़ी प्रसन्नता हुई।
I'm very happy to see the picture which you used in your background, Navdeep Dham. I feel very good seeing that picture.
और मैं इनसे प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि ये काफी समय हो गया नवदीप धाम, वृंदावन में या जगन्नाथपुरी में कहीं भी इनका हमें दर्शन नहीं हुआ। ये हमारा बड़ा दुर्भाग्य है। यदि हमसे कोई गलती हुई है, कोई अपराध हुआ है, उस अपराध को मैं इनके चरणों में प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि उस अपराध को क्षमा करेंगे और शीघ्र ही हमें अपना दर्शन दे करके हम पर कृपा करेंगे।
I pray in his lotus feet that we have not seen him for a long time in Navdeep Dham and in Vrindavan Dham. If there is some aparadh from our side, I apologize for this, and I pray to him that he should give his darshan as soon as possible. We are missing him a lot. और कुछ बोलना चाहते हैं प्रभु जी?
बस इनके चरणों में यही प्रार्थना है कि जो भी अपराध है, ये महान है, ग्रेट है, हम अपराधी हैं, तो हमसे तो अपराध होंगे, क्षमा हमें ये करेंगे। और मैं चाहता हूं कि इनका दर्शन होने से हमको बड़ा बल मिलेगा भक्ति क्षेत्र में, कि गुरुदेव की बहुत सेवा इन्होंने की है, गुरुदेव के उत्तम सेवक हैं ये, और उत्तम सेवक का दर्शन करना मेरे जैसे बद्ध जीव के लिए बहुत बड़े सौभाग्य की बात है और बहुत ही आनंद की बात है।
So he's saying that you are a great person, and we are not so great, we are small. So it is our nature to do aparadh, and if we have done any aparadh in your lotus feet, we apologize. And you must give your darshan very soon. It will enthuse us to do more seva, and it will give us a lot of inspiration. We want to see you as soon as possible. And we pray to you that you come and visit us. We have not seen you for a long time. ठीक है प्रभु जी?
वांछाकल्पस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य पतितान पावन वैष्णवो नमो नमः।
Prabhu, actually, you've cheated me just now, because actually the blessings have all come from you to me.
प्रभु जी कह रहे हैं कि
sorry, yeah, translate.
प्रभु जी ये कह रहे हैं कि आपने मुझे ठग लिया है, ब्लेसिंग तो सारी आपसे मेरी तरफ आ रही है, अभी मैं देख रहा हूँ।
I actually feel indebted to you for the words that you've bestowed on me.
मैं आपका बड़ा आभारी हूँ कि आपने ऐसे सुंदर शब्द मेरे लिए कहे।
I can't give any blessings to you at all, but I can beg to Srila Gurudeva that he showers you with blessings, and that all the blessings possible from Lord Nityananda cascade into your heart and overwhelm your heart.
मैं आपको कोई आशीर्वाद नहीं दे सकता, लेकिन मैं गुरु जी से प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि वो आपको खूब आशीर्वाद की वर्षा करे, नित्यानंद प्रभु आप पे आशीर्वाद करें और आपको खूब भक्ति का आनंद मिले।
And if there's an aparadi between the two of us, it is definitely me.
और अगर कोई अपराधी है हम दोनों में से, तो वो मैं ही हूँ, आप नहीं।
So pray I can re-enter Braj and be successful.
आप मेरे लिए प्रार्थना करें कि मैं ब्रज में वापस आ सकूं,
and have your beautiful association.
And आपकी जो बहुत सुंदर आपकी मैं संग पा सकूं, आप ऐसे मेरे लिए प्रार्थना करें। So thank you, Prabhuji. I think now I can request Yashodhari Didi also to speak few words, because she is in the part of your team. Yashodhari Didi, you can unmute yourself now.
Ajay Krishna Prabhu, I have I have nothing to say.
Oh, you've been working so hard all this while, so say some good words.
All I can say is that me and Yasodanandana Prabhu have been working on these projects on Bhakti Zoom together, and I can vouch. He spoke earlier about having a report card, and if anyone knows how to write a report card, and I can vouch that he's one of the most nicest sevaks to work with. And we've always had this mood of keeping Srila Gurudev in the center of everything that we do. And we've always wanted that. And Yasodanandana Prabhu keeps Srila Gurudev in the center of everything that we do. And he reminds us of our Gurudev's mission, which is Mahaprabhu's mission. And so anything that you see from any of us, any work that we are doing, we are like Yasodanandana Prabhu says, we are just the flute in which Srila Gurudev can play his tune. And this is the mercy of Srila Gurudev. I have no clue what I've done in any lifetime to be able to be used as a instrument for Srila Gurudev, but I'm just very grateful. Actually, people think that London, even though London has a lot of Maya, there's so many beautiful and wonderful devotees of Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada here. So we're really, really fortunate that we've had the top end of both relationships with Srila Prabhupada disciples and Srila Gurudev, and every moment is a moment where we're reminded of Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. So I'm very lucky to have Yasodanandana Prabhu as a wonderful co-sevak. But not only that, we're really fortunate to have such wonderful God brothers across and God sisters across the whole entire world. And, you know, I'm grateful for yourself, Ajay Krishna Prabhu, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, and the entire Indian Seva team, especially, and I want to particularly speak about Lavanga Didi and Ambrish Prabhu for what they've done. And how they've carried our Gurudev Seva. And if anyone says to me that they're not Srila Gurudev disciples, I wouldn't believe it, because I think that they are more of a Gurudev disciple than I could ever be. So they are wonderful and very encouraging. So I always pray that we can all work together across the world and with Yasodanandana Prabhu and keep Srila Gurudev in our center. And hope that you all bless me, because I'm the real baby of the group, that you can keep me in your association and I can grow in bhakti, because if my sadhana is weak and my bhakti is not strong, then my seva is nothing. So I can only pray to you all that you help me, that my bhakti becomes strong, my sadhana becomes strong, that then I can really serve Srila Gurudev. So that's all I've got to say. I have nothing else to say, but thank you so much for everything that you all do over there.
Thank you, Yashodharaji. Thank you so much. How nicely you put it, keep Gurudev in the center and you be like a flute so that he can play his tune. I hope we all can do that and take inspiration from what you said. Ramananda Prabhu, you also want to say a few words? Are you there? I think he must be working. Okay, Prabhuji, that was such a wonderful session today we had with you. I had known you in 1996. I did that full parikrama with Gurudev, and I had seen you many times coming with your ex-wife. And I always looked at you like some very rich person, and you were rich that time and very opulent. But I never got a chance to speak with you so personally like what I heard today. But today I came to know that you are such a beautiful person inside and outside. And you shared everything very, very openly, which normally people hesitate to share. But the way you shared, you were very open with all of us on a public platform without any hesitation. And you gave us a lot of good inspirational things. You started with how rare is human life. If we can understand this, then we can make good use of the life which we have. But the unfortunate thing is most of us do not understand how rare it is. If you worked out so nicely mathematical probability, so that you can figure it, we can see it very clearly that it is so last chance to be human, that to come when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming in one day of Brahma, and that to be born very short time after he is gone, and that to be coming in association with such a elevated guru. So all these possibilities are very, very rare, and we are come through very fine selection process, I would say. And we are very close to meeting now Radha and Krishna. That's my understanding is. So you started very nicely with that. And then very important words you said, that a lot of people say I'm not qualified. But the way you think about it is really very nice and very correct. I'm not qualified, but my guru is very qualified. So he is my passport and visa. And I depend on his lotus feet. I don't depend on myself. How does it matter if I'm not qualified? My guru can do anything. So he's doing things for me. So this is a very, very good thought. I think we all should nurture this thought which Prabhuji has told us. And we should not feel that we are not qualified, so we are not doing anything. No, our Gurudev is so qualified, so let us put our full force into it. Then you told the beautiful story about squirrel in Ramayana, how Ramchandra and she was blessed. So yeah, let's be like squirrel and do something at least. No seva is small or big. It is the quality of seva, you said, not quantity of seva. So whatever we can do, we should put something, and everybody, all of us should. And you said sadhana and seva both should be strong. So this is a very good advice, I would say, that some people are only doing sadhana but no seva, and some people are doing only seva and no sadhana. So you inspired us to keep a good balance of these two things. Sadhana and seva both should be strong. And then you have used a very good term, ambitious for Krishna consciousness. Yes, a lot of people think we should have no desires. No, we should have very strong desire, as you said, to be ambitious in Krishna consciousness. All our Goswamis had desires. Even Rup Goswami had desire. If you read his poems, he would always desire to be serving Radha and Krishna. So the statement which we normally make, that no desires, is only for material desires. But you can have as many spiritual desires as we want, and we can work as hard as we want. So I totally agree with you. Ambitions for Krishna consciousness. And another statement you made, which was really very sweet, our Gurudeva is our beating heart. So this is a very, very sweet statement, that you feel your Gurudeva is your beating heart. And Gurudev always did teaching in action. No difference in his speech and action. Yes. Whatever action he did, he was always teaching something. Not necessarily when he sat on the Vyasasana, but when he was dealing with you, he was always teaching, and you could learn from whatever he did. Once he came to our house, I remember, and there was my wife's friend, our interior designer. She was sitting there. She had no contact with any devotees ever in her life, and by chance she happened to be here in our house. And the Gurudev saw her, and she said, "Oh, you are going to take many thousand births. You are too far still." I never heard Gurudev say like this to anybody ever, but that day it looked a little bit, I don't know, a little odd. But Gurudev said, "You are going to have many more thousand births. It will take a long time for you." So Gurudev could see everybody in the crowd, that who has got how many births left and where they are going. He was so powerful. And then you talked about Sambandha, Abhidya and Prayojan. That was also very, very sweet. And gold is a hidden treasure which Guru has given us. Abhidya is greed. And the other term you use is sort of new for me, greed for greed. So I really like this expression of yours, greed for greed we should have. Yes, if you don't have greed, at least have greed for greed.
Ajay, that's really, really important, because I didn't have greed at the time, so I was bereft. So if I don't have greed, what can I have? Only greed for greed. And anyone can have greed for greed.
So beautiful, Prabhuji. I mean, if you think like this, it shows that you have some good realizations in your life. Otherwise, you cannot think like this. You cannot think in terms of greed for greed. So it's a very nice thing you have given us. If we don't have greed, at least we should have some greed to get greed. And then you talked about Sambandha relationship. Is how about dealings, loving dealings between each other, between all of us. That is a Sambandha, and with the Lord also. And then you talked about heart being alive below the head in the river of bhakti. Most of the time we are thinking from the head, but bhakti is not done by the head. Maybe you can do gyan, maybe you can get some knowledge, but bhakti is below the head, you said. I totally 100% agree with it. It's from the heart. It's love. It is the nature of your heart and soul. So nice. And you talked about Trivikram Maharaj, sweet pastimes. I would say there was no discussion. Trivikram Maharaj will knowingly disturb Gurudev. He'll invite him to speak more tattvas, which Gurudev otherwise would not have spoken. But Trivikram Maharaj will incite him, and he will tell some one or two sentences like this, that he'll be very energized to speak about it. And then he'll be quiet and hear nicely. So Trivikram Maharaj was working in a very smart way to get nice Harikatha out of Gurudev. It was such a loving experience to see both of them together. And then you talked about Yasodanandana Kirtan Hall. Yes, Gurudev used to always respect everybody so much, and whosoever did little seva, he would give so much respect to them. And without your expecting or asking or talking, he just put your name there. And it was sort of maybe surprising for you, but Gurudev was always honoring his devotees who was doing seva. Even now, I think when you do seva, you must be getting a lot of blessing. I can feel a lot of blessing coming from him when I do small little thing for him. So you said he knew how to engage my false ego in seva. Yes, that he always does. Very smartly, he has his own ways to engage people without them realizing that he's engaging you, and he will get the work done and you will start doing bhajan. So yes, it is very right you said. and he makes you greet for seva. And then you talked about special treasure box in my heart called Manjari Bhav, which you said he put in the very beginning in 1996 itself, without our knowing what is Manjari Bhav, what is this, but he put it in our mind, even small child's mind, he put this Manjari Bhav. If you ask anybody in Gaudiya Math who has seen Gurudev, what is the goal, he'll say, okay, Manjari Bhav, Radha Dasyam, straight away. So, and now we are slowly figuring it out and understanding what it really means and what we need to do for it. Then you talk about Hegel's philosophy. You need a motivation or a purpose to do anything. Yes. We call it in management terms. You are a graduate from London School. I have not been to any business school, but I know a term called MBO, management by objective. You have your objective first and you start working towards it. So Gurudev sort of used to give us this MBO concept, that you have your target fixed and then you work towards it. And then you talked about one more beautiful thing. God is intervening through Guru. And that's why the astrologers cannot make focus about devotees. We heard this thing with from Bhudhar Prabhu also, who was there with us a few days back, and he's a big astrologer himself. So yes, and I heard it from Gurudev himself. Once I was sitting in Mathura Math, and a lady was pestering him, Guruji, do you see hand? Do you see lines of the hand? And he said, no, I don't see lines. I change the lines. So that's what is the power. He said himself. So that is the power of Guru. And you talked about relationship is not static, always moving and dynamic. Yes. Bhakti is never static. It is always with waves. And it is moving up and moving down and always live and active. And another very, very beautiful thing which you told, which is very difficult to follow, which Gurudev also used to say all the time, is do not criticize. But you added one more thing. Instead of criticize, start glorifying. So I think that's what Gurudev always did with everybody. He would always glorify each of his disciples and he will never see shortcomings. If he started seeing shortcoming in us, none of us are fit to be with him. Nobody will be there. So he always show our good things. And he told us also never criticize, and which I can see that you're following so beautifully in your own life and you're practicing what he has said and advised. Then you talked about Arth Pravarti and Anarth Nivritti, Leela. He told you to do here Leelas. I can say same thing about me. When I came to Gurudeva, I was not interested in any Leelas, because I used to find them like tales, story. I was very interested in Tattvas. I think most of us who come in the beginning are more inclined, but now after a few years with Gurudev, you don't want to hear any Tattva. You want to hear only Leelas now. It's so sweet. So this transformation we go through when we meet such Mahabhagavat. And then he taught you to apologize. Other devotees open up. Magical things happen when you start apologizing. Yes, this is very, very important principle. I think if we feel that we have done some aparadh, we should immediately go and apologize and mend our ways with that Vaishnav. And Vaishnavas are very, very merciful. They will surely excuse us, and then magical things will happen. This is surely, it will surely happen, but we have to take the first step and be humble enough to apologize. And then you expressed yourself, your mercy, Gurudev's mercy on you as you being fished out of the sea. Yes, I think it's true for all of us. He has fished all of us out of the sea. We were floating and drowning, and he's fished us out very nicely. There are so many more things to say. And you talked about your marriage, which I am really, so many learnings from there. And it was very nice of you to be very open and frank and very honest in whatever you said. I really appreciate it, Prabhuji. And there are so many things. I don't want to take more time because it's quite late. So I just want to say Dandavat Pranams in your lotus feet. And the seva you're doing, it is amazing, amazing seva. I think because of you, all of us got charged up, like Vijay Prabhu and all of us, just by seeing your seva. I was in Canada at that time and I was feeling so lonely and not able to do anything for Gurudev in the centennial. And I desired so strongly to come to India, and then Gurudev arranged for everything. And he gave me the seva also. So I think by seeing your inspiration, we're all getting a lot of inspiration, and the way you are going to celebrate World Sankirtan Day, the initiatives you are taking. Not everybody is capable of thinking in the future and planning things and working on them. A lot of people can follow, but the way you're taking the leadership role and doing so much seva, even after Gurudeva is gone from our vision of our eyes, you were doing so much seva when you were there in this world. But now I think you are so much energized and charged that I'm so happy. I just have one question. Are you still in your business? Are you doing your business, or you're given up totally? You're giving so much time to seva.
I'm actually in transition. Last year I got colon cancer last year.
Oh.
And actually, I was going to be one of my stories, but it's gone now. And by Gurudev's grace, that was a whole Gurudev pastime, actually, the whole cancer. And I had a dream beforehand, and I knew that I had to stop doing property, because for me, this is not a criticism of property as a profession, but I had realized I'd gone too far into bhakti to be into a business that couldn't give me any sweetness. Like, I could think of Krishna, but it wasn't enough. I just couldn't do it anymore. I needed to be in doing something where I was able to channel and be a beacon for Gurudev's sweet heart. And I couldn't do that through property anymore. It was taking me a different place. So I decided to create something called Soul Inspired, and I've written a course, which is a mixture between Sankhya philosophy with the power of grace. It's a kind of a pre-Krishna consciousness spiritual course to bring people to the doorstep of bhakti, and I'm hoping to launch that this year.
Oh, what time? Which month?
An online course.
Okay, that's so nice for me.
For non-devotees, called Soul Inspired.
So I love the initiatives you take and the planning you do. It's so nice. And I've seen one thing: all the disciples of Gurudev are eventually coming to Gurudev full time. I've noticed this, including myself.
Yeah.
Because last 1 year I did not fly at all, and here somehow, because we don't want to come, and somehow he's pulling us by our hair.
Yeah.
And I've seen Somnath Prabhu. I've seen so many big devotees. They're already in Vrindavan, most of them.
Give my love to Mr. Somnath and Mrs. Somnath.
Sure, Prabhu, sure.
And also with World Sankirtan Day, the International Day of Joy, Ajay, we need your help. So this is not something we can do on our own. We need your help.
I'm always there in your lotus feet. Whatever you want me to do, I'll be there to do it. And I'm like a servant. You make me do anything, I'm ready. And I'm very happy that you're engaging my daughter also with you, and she's on your team.
Tremendous. She's really great.
So thank you so much for giving us so much seva and putting us in Gurudev's service, Prabhuji. And I offer my unlimited Dandavat Pranams in lotus feet. That the seva you're doing, we should be able to do such kind of seva in some of our births, maybe this birth or next birth or whatever birth, that we can get some inspiration from you. And I offer my thanks and pranams to all the listeners who are listening and who are giving us so much of encouragement, and also are going to listen later. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you very much. I love your seva, love what you're doing. It's beautiful, and I feel inspired by your seva too. So thank you so much. It's such a beautiful, beautiful program. I felt very welcome, and I felt so much Braj-like sweetness from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.